Hey everyone, have you ever stopped to think about the buildings our kids spend their days in? I mean, really think about them. Today, we're diving into a powerful, almost invisible force that shapes their future, the school itself. We're going to talk about the architecture of agency. So, I'll ask you this. Beyond the books and the tests, what is your school really teaching? What lessons are being taught by the hallways, the classrooms, the design of the space itself? The answer, as you'll see, is a lot more than you might think. And this quote right here is the heart of it. A school isn't just a box you put kids in to learn. Its design is an active force. It's a silent curriculum that is constantly, quietly telling students how to act, how to think, and who they can be. And it can either build them up or, hold them back. Okay, so let's dig into this silent curriculum. To really get it, we need to start with the fundamental connection between us as people and the spaces we're in. All right, so this slide has a fancy word on it. Synomorphy. Sounds complicated, right? But it's actually a super simple idea. It just means, does the space fit what you're trying to do in it? Think about trying to do a big, messy, collaborative science project in a classroom where all the desks are bolted to the floor in neat little rows. It just doesn't work. That mismatch, that friction, that's called ecological dissonance, and it's a huge barrier to letting kids take charge of their own learning. So, how does all this actually play out? Well, it turns out, before a teacher even says a word, the building itself is already talking to a student's brain and body. Yeah, it all starts with our biology, the stuff we barely even notice. The quality of the light, the background noise, the air we're breathing. These are what scientists call biophysical modulators. They are literally tuning a student's brain and body, setting the stage for learning before a single book is ever opened. So take natural light, for instance. It's not just about having a pretty view. Sunlight literally syncs up our internal body clocks. It helps regulate key brain chemicals like serotonin, which affects our mood, and cortisol, our stress hormone. All of this directly impacts how alert and positive a student feels, which, is the absolute foundation for making proactive choices. And on the flip side, what about sound? Well, poor acoustics or the constant rumble from a busy hallway, that's not just annoying. It acts as a low-level chronic stress trigger. It drains a student's energy and makes them more irritable. It's why having quiet spaces isn't some kind of luxury. It's absolutely essential for the kind of deep, focused work that self-directed learning demands. Okay, so we've covered the biology. Now let's get into the behavior. How can we actually design spaces that don't just contain students, but actively coach them in the art of making their own decisions? I mean, just look at the difference here. It's night and day, right? On one side, you have the traditional egg carton classroom. It's built for one thing: compliance, following rules. On the other side, you have a high agency space, like a makerspace. What does that teach? Prototyping, problem solving, teamwork. The architecture itself forces a shift from a teacher-led system to a learner-driven one. And the key idea here is something called affordances. An affordance is basically a signal from an object or an environment about what you can do with it. A comfortable chair affords sitting. A handle affords pulling. So a movable wall affords collaboration. A quiet little nook affords deep thinking. A school that's full of these kinds of affordances becomes a training ground for making choices. This all sounds great while you're in school, for sure, but what's the real payoff? What happens when these kids grow up? Let's take a look at how these early experiences actually translate into real-world adult outcomes. This chart just lays it out so clearly. You see the direct line, right? Learning how to set a goal for a school project, that becomes the ability to solve complex problems in your career. Dealing with a frustration when your experiment fails, that builds real-world resilience. Figuring out how to share tools in a workshop, that turns into leadership and teamwork. These aren't just soft skills. They're critical life skills, and they're forged in these K-12 environments. But how strong is the evidence, really? Is this just a nice theory? Well, the most powerful data we have shows that the impact of these high-agency environments isn't just temporary. It's not just profound. It's lifelong. And here it is. This is the knockout punch. A massive study followed kids who went through the Reggio Emilia approach, a system where the environment is literally called the third teacher, and they checked in with them when they were 40 years old. The results are just stunning. Compared to their peers, they had higher employment, a much stronger belief that they were in control of their own lives, and they were even more likely to vote. This is the proof. But here's the twist, and it's a really critical one. You can build the most beautiful, modern, flexible school in the world, but it means absolutely nothing if the school's policies and rules completely contradict what the architecture is trying to do. This leads us to something called the controlled space paradox. On one hand, the building promises freedom and collaboration with its open designs, but on the other hand, the reality can be one of pervasive cameras, locked doors, and strict rules that create a panopticon, that creepy feeling that you're being watched all the time. The promise of agency, which the architect made, gets totally shattered by the psychological reality of control. And the research on this is really clear. Things like visible security cameras, they can actually make students feel less safe, not more. Constant online monitoring, that creates what's called a chilling effect, where kids are afraid to express their real opinions. And rigid rules about where you can and can't go just create no-go zones that shrink a student's world. This isn't building agency, it's actively tearing it down. And that chilling effect I mentioned, it's not just a theory. Get this, a staggering 6 out of 10 students say they feel uncomfortable expressing their true ideas online because they know their school is watching. Think about that. Taking a risk and developing your own unique voice suddenly becomes dangerous. So, where does all of this leave us? It means that the ability to actually understand, navigate, and even shape your own environment is becoming one of the most important skills you can have for the future. This leads us to a new core skill for the future: spatial agency. It's the ability to read a space and then rewrite its rules to make it work better. When you hear organizations like the World Economic Forum talking about critical skills for the 2030s, things like leadership and analytical thinking, well, spatial agency is the foundation that all of those other skills are built on. So how do we actually get this right? Well, it boils down to a few key things. We have to make sure the rules match the rooms. We have to find a way to balance security with a real respect for privacy. We need to start thinking of good architecture as a form of preventative healthcare. And maybe most importantly, we have to involve students themselves in designing the very spaces they learn in every day. Because really, in the end, this isn't just about schools, is it? Every single environment we find ourselves in, our office, our home, our city, is a teacher. So the final question is for you. Take a look around. What is your environment teaching you? And is that what you want to learn?